Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to do 2 months of a wrap-up. I did not do a wrap-up in September because I was waiting for a vlog to come out. And then in October, I've only read 2 books. So it's fine to just put them all together, right? So first we're going to talk about the 5 books that I read in September, and some of them I've already talked about in a vlog, so I may not go too in depth, and then we'll talk about the 2 books that I read in October. Okay, so in September, I read 3 books for a vlog, and that vlog is already out on my channel. I do a series on my channel where I read books about asylums or institutions. If you didn't know, I do work in behavioral health, and so I've always had a fascination with asylums, institutions, behavioral health hospitals, especially like deviant behavior and ones that maybe like were shut down because of malpractice or had some sinister things going on. It's just always really intrigued me. The Lost Girls of Willowbrook, Women 99, things like that. Think Girl Interrupted vibes. Those are the types of books that I love to read. So I'm constantly on the hunt for the best ones. So I read 3 books for that vlog. The first one was The Forgotten Letters of Esther Durant by Katie Nunn, and I gave this 2 stars. This was dual timeline, and it's about a woman who was sent to an institution because she had postpartum depression, and this institution was honestly great. Like, I don't even think there's asylums or institutions this great today in America. She had a therapist that she met with every day. She had close personal relationships with the other patients there, with the workers there. Like, it wasn't a bad place. So I feel like that was a little bit misleading because this was set in the 1950s, and that definitely wasn't the state of behavioral health then. So I thought it was a little bit unrealistic. But then there was also this 2018 timeline that didn't really seem to make sense and didn't really converge well enough with the other story. It could have been 2 completely separate books. I don't think the current timeline was needed, but there was cheating in this book. There was unnecessary cursing, which, like, I'm not a prude, but like, it was just a little bit too much, and it wasn't well, like, it wasn't put into where it went with what was happening. You know, like if you stub your toe, yeah, you're probably gonna curse, but like, it didn't make sense that way. I didn't really like the writing style. Just overall, like, I don't really have anything nice to say about this book, so definitely think you can skip this one. Next book I read for that vlog, I actually gave 4 stars, and it was The Orphanage by the Lake by Daniel G. Miller. And this is about a woman who is a 30-year-old private investigator, and she is sought out by a woman who says, hey, my goddaughter was at this orphanage and she's gone missing. And she said, I'm going to pay you a ton of money, but you have to find her in a week. So Hazel goes, and she goes to this orphanage, and she meets the workers there, and she meets some of the students and everything. And it is like ominous. And it's not an orphanage for just like regular orphans. It's orphans who have had, maybe some delinquent behaviors, or, just kind of rough and been through the system. So this was really good. I liked Hazel as a character. I liked the way it kind of developed. Is it nothing that you could have guessed? No, you probably could guess what happened, but the way it was laid out was really well, and it had me on the edge of my seat. It had me wanting to come back and keep reading it. So overall, I really like this one, and I think that it is definitely one that you should pick up if you want some like dark academia, sinister orphanage vibes. It's pretty good. And then the last book I read for that vlog, I actually gave 5 stars, and it is Return to Wildcliff Heights by Carol Goodman. And I found this because my fiance and I were just walking around a Barnes & Noble in Morgantown, West Virginia when we were visiting his sister, and I just realized that I don't just browse shelves anymore. I feel like I'm so inundated with the book community, which is not a bad thing, but I feel like I constantly see books in stores through the lens of new releases. Have I heard people talking about it? And sometimes it deters me from picking up certain books because I haven't heard anything about it or whatever. So I told myself, I was like, you know what, we're just gonna walk around and we're just gonna pick up whatever comes to us and whatever seems like it could be fun and interesting. So I actually picked up the book next to this one, also by Carol Goodman, because that one intrigued me and it kind of piqued my interest. And I read the back of it and I was like, this is kind of nice. I might try this. And usually what I do is I'll like carry around a book with me and I'll keep looking at it and thinking about it, and that's how I decide whether or not I want to buy it. But then I saw the book next to it and it was this one, and I was like, Wildcliff Heights, that sounds like an asylum. And I read the back of it and I was like, it is an asylum. And this book is very Jane Eyre-esque, and that's how it's described on the back. And I was like, I'm in. And I love that. I love that I just walked through a bookstore and picked up a book sight unseen. And I feel like I don't do that anymore. And I feel like the book community in general doesn't do that anymore because we get so much information thrown at us of newest releases, hottest releases, book reviews, pick this book up, don't pick this book up. So this was nice, and I like the way that this book came to me, and I like that I found a new author and a 5-star book. So this is about Agnes, and she is wanting to be an editor, and so she gets this job at this printing company, this small publishing printing company. And this publishing company, they basically have one claim to fame book, and it's this book about Wildcliffe Heights called The Secret of Wildcliffe Heights. And the woman who wrote it, Veronica St. Clair, she wrote that book, and then she kind of became a recluse, and she's gone blind, and Agnes is tasked with helping her write her sequel. So Agnes goes to Wildcliffe Heights in upstate New York, and it's just so sinister, and there's a lot of things happening at Wildcliffe Heights. It's been an orphanage, it's been a mental institution, it's been a home for wayward girls, it's been a lot of different things, and Agnes herself went through the system, so she was in like a similar type of situation where she was in group homes and like an institutional setting. So there's a lot of talk about mental health in this. There's a lot of talk about found family, and this was just really, really good. And it's one of those things where you're not sure if it's going to have a paranormal element to it or not, and I'm not going to tell you whether or not it does. You can find out for yourself. But this one was just really good, and I think if you like anything about orphanages, asylums, anything that might have like a haunted past to it. And you're basically just following Agnes as she's learning about all of the things that happen at Wildcliffe Heights over the years, and it was just really good. I have a lot of good things to say about it. Okay, and then the next book I read in September was a reread, and I gave it 5 stars the first time I read it, and I gave it 5 stars this time, and it's Homes Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. And this is a story about 3 siblings whose mother passes away and their father has gone missing, and they're back at their mother's house to kind of settle her affairs and sell off the house and everything, and they're kind of estranged siblings, and they learn that their parents may or may not have been involved in the disappearance of a young girl in their town in the 90s. There's a lot of good 90s vibes in this. There's a lot of really good sibling relationship and sibling rivalry in this, and it's just really good. I like the dual timelines. I like the way the reveals happen. Once again, was it a reveal and a whodunit that you would never guess? No, I guessed it the first time around, but it was still very well done and very much a popcorn thriller. Like, this is one of the main definitions of a popcorn thriller, I think. So it's really good, and I'm able to finish it in a day. I read it in a day the first time I read it and the next time, and it's a really good road trip book. It's a really good palate cleanser, and it's thrilling without being super gory or super in your face. So it's just a really good one. And then the last book I read in September was One by One by Frida McFadden. I'm slowly working through Frida McFadden's backlist, and this is about 3 couples who go on a weekend retreat together, and they're on their way to the retreat and the car breaks down, and so they decide to walk the last 2 miles to get to this cabin in the wilderness, and they start getting picked off one by one. That's about all you need to know. Very average, very fine. Like, that's the word that comes to mind when I think about it. Like, it was fine. There was nothing super spectacular about it. No big reveals that I didn't see coming. It was just very, very average, and it did something at the end that I don't really like, but I don't know, it is what it is. Very much a domestic popcorn thriller, so average. That's all I have to say about that book, average. And then the first book that I finished in October was called Such Quiet Girls, I believe, by Noelle Ilhe, I think is how you say her name. And I listened to this on Libro FM. I was gifted a advanced listener copy. So thank you so much for Libro FM for that advanced listener's copy. And this I gave 3 stars. Once again, very average. It's about a group of children on a bus going from their school to their after school care. So it's a couple different ages, basically just going to their daycare. And the bus driver is not who she says she is, and you learn that pretty quickly. And then the bus is taken captive. It's like basically robbed, and they're all taken captive and put in a van and taken. So you're following both the perspective of the bus driver as well as one of the children, as well as one of the children's mothers. And so you're just trying to figure out who these people are that took them, what is happening, what's the purpose behind it, and you're just kind of following all of these people. It was fine. I didn't mind the child's perspective. Usually I don't like when there's the perspective of a child, but it was pretty well done, and the narrator didn't make it sound like whiny. Sometimes I hate when adult narrators try and sound like kids, so the listening experience was fine. It just, again, felt very average. Nothing bad about it, just probably not something that I'll remember and be recommending to a bunch of people, but nothing wrong with it. I think if you like that type of book, or you like having a child's perspective, or you like kidnapping books, then try it out. And then the last book that I read in October was The Poppy Fields by Nikki Erlich, and this I'm actually going to be discussing tonight. When you're watching this, the discussion will have already happened, but I'm discussing it tonight with Elise from Literally Elise, and she has the Libranauts book club. So I will be discussing this with the Libranauts, and I'm super excited for that. And this is a beautiful copy of The Poppy Fields. I read Nikki Erlich's debut, which was The Measure. Loved it, 5 stars. So this is her sophomore novel. And I tried to go into this with low expectations after a 5-star book, but I feel like that's just hard, right? Especially since it's like so beautiful. This is marketed as a science experiment where people go and they sleep for months to help them heal from trauma and from loss of a loved one. That's how it's marketed. But really what this is multiple people on a road trip. People who are trying to get to the poppy fields for whatever reason, and they're all riding together on a road trip to get there. You don't actually get to the poppy fields until 82% into the book. So if this was marketed as people trying to find themselves and find their purpose through this, travel expedition where they all drive across the country together, okay, market it as that. But it's marketed as a science fiction book about a science experiment. And that's not really what happened. So that's kind of all I have to say about that. I'm not going to say much more because I want you to go and watch the live show back. So definitely go and watch that so you can hear all of my thoughts and all of Elisa's thoughts and hear all of the nitty-gritty details about this book. Okay, those are all of the books that I read in September and October. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments below, have you read any of these books? And if so, what do you think of them? Please hit that subscribe button, it really helps out my channel, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!